Good morning. You know, the gospel is called good news for a reason, and that's because it is absolutely incredible, the grace that you see in the Father, that He would be willing to send His Son to die on our behalf. I mean, we're the ones who have broken the law. We're the ones who have violated the commands. We're the ones who have chosen to sin and literally shake our fist in the face of God. Yet God in His grace and mercy is the one who is willing to send His Son to live and die and be raised on our behalf. In John 1:14, you just begin to catch a glimpse of how good this good news really is. It says in John 1:14, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen His glory, glories of His only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. And from His fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, the only God who is at the Father's side, but Christ has made Him known." You know, it's amazing when you begin to recognize that although God could have sent Christ as a judge and an avenger on our sin, instead He sent Christ to die for our sins. It says that He sent Christ, the Father being full of grace and truth, sent Christ. That God had given this law, and every man had broken the law of God, and the law was rigid, and the law was heavy, and the law was absolutely impossible to keep. But God, rather than require us to fulfill that law, sent Christ to fulfill it for us. Remember, Christ didn't come to abolish the law, but fulfill the law, so that God might extend His grace to us. And then it says, "And from His fullness we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth come through Jesus Christ." Have you ever looked at the law? Have you ever looked at the burdens of the law? Have you ever looked at the weightiness of the law and basically said to yourself, there's no way in the world that I can keep this? Well, God understands that, and God knows that you can't keep His law. As a matter of fact, the law was not given to save you. However, the law was given, as we saw in Galatians, to drive us to our Savior. But it goes on and He says, "No one has ever seen God, the only God who is at the Father's side, but Christ has made Him known." You know, as you study the Old Testament and you see that no one could bear to look upon God and live, you also need to understand that if you really want to know what God is like, then you need to watch Christ in the Gospels, and you see His grace, and you see His mercy, and you see His love, and you see His care. And you never see His grace, mercy, and love any greater than the day that Christ, God Himself, gives Himself over unto death so that you might live. I hope that you recognize today that God's love for you is so deep that even while you hated Him, even while you rejected Him, He sent Christ to die for you on your behalf. That God is full of grace and truth, and may you go out this day and extend His grace and His truth to this world that is dying to hear about.